Dixon will head downstairs.
I will do the same.
And as you walk downstairs, you find a confrontation ongoing in the dining room. Oscar is in a heated conversation with Justinia, who seems to be trying to calm him down. The godmother, Abella, is demanding that he leave. They are not right at the stairs, they are at the opposite side of the room, but from what you can hear, you can really sort of only hear Oscar's side as he's speaking more loudly, although occasionally Abella is sort of shouting at him to get out. Oscar is loudly pleading with Justinia to leave the island, leave this you hear a lot of references to leaving this den of vice and sinful life or more of the same sort of thing. And she basically seems to just be trying to get him to calm down.
Dixon will walk over to the bar. Could I trouble you for a cup of coffee?
And he seems entirely unfazed by anything that's happening. You get the sense arguments aren't exactly uncommon here, and he says, "Yeah, how do you take it?"
Black as midnight on a moonlit night.
"I'll see what I can do."
Much
And
obliged.
he leaves to a small kitchen that's kind of right behind the bar, and he returns with a cup of hot coffee and places it in front of you.
And Dixon will nod, take it, find somewhere to sit, and he will smell the coffee, trying to remove the taste of the underwater from his senses.
And it does indeed that the taste that you woke up with in your mouth was seawater. Salt, seaweed, a sort of odd vegetal but rotting, not pleasant.
Trying to take in the bitter smell of coffee, as it's so much better than that.
Elvon will sit next to you. A tea for me, please, if you have it.
The bartender will give you a nod and head back to the kitchen. The shouting continues, and Abella calls for two of her sons, Pete and Pace, and demands that they throw Oscar out since he is not leaving of his own accord, and they grab him by each arm and begin dragging him to the door. And the bartender returns with your tea.
I guess we will not be getting his assistance.
Your former friend, now associate, does seem to have a problem with not grabbing the bull by the tail. Cannot seem to let well enough alone.
He is young and unwise, shall we say.
He's certainly been a hindrance. He's spent more time chasing his lady friend and trying to convince her to not be here than he has in looking for the reason that we originally came here for.
I have a feeling if he did not come, we would have been a lot further.
I find it hard to disagree with your assessment of this situation.
And it's a lot quieter now in the dining room. It seems like there aren't a lot of people here at this time. You kind of get the sense that anyone who actually works during the day is probably already left, and anyone who doesn't is probably still asleep. There's the bartender, Abella, Pete, and Pace are now sort of not recovering from the confrontation because they weren't upset by it, but sort of brushing it off and returning to what they normally do. There's maybe one or two fishermen or dock workers sort of drinking coffee as well, waking up before they head out to their day's work, but it's very quiet and empty now.
I do believe that there is more than at first appears. I do believe there could well be some form of Vaesen at play.
So that was not just a me?
My Swedish could sometimes need a little work, I admit. I'm not quite sure what you were getting at there, but if you're implying that you also had a nightmare involving drowning, then yes. I can still taste it. Uh, I've had a bit of a thought connected between the family of the Baron and the dream that we both experienced last night.
And that would be?
Well, as in part the fact that we both, to some degree, had such a similar recountance of events, it makes me feel, as I said, that there is a Vaesen at play. That would make it a rather limited number of such beings that could be associated with the sea, however. This has led me to consider the possibility of something I had read some time ago on mermaids. There was a rather interesting fellow who had written a journal about such things. Many considered his writings not to be of particularly sound argument or him of sound mind, but be that as it may, there may have been some truth in what he was considering. He had intimated that there are times when fishermen have caught such creatures from the sea, and some, knowing that's what they are, and fearful of possible retribution, have thrown them back. But others do not consider this to be a sound thought. The problem seems to stem from within these learned circles that mermaids have a tail, and if they have in fact captured their offspring and raised them as humans, as the author had claimed, they would not. Some feel then that they must grow into their more aquatic-like tendencies as they become closer to adulthood. Others have no clear idea at all. We have no proof, but if Zacharias was a captured child, it would explain why he is so different from the others, and they do have, as legend says, some control over the sea. Could be why the herring are so predominant in this region again at all times of the year. Now, I fully realize, my good friend, that if you said, out of all the possibilities that exist in time and space, the one that I have most chosen for why he does not look like his brother's is he is clearly the offspring of a mermaid. I can understand if you have some reluctance to jump to that as the primary course.
It is certainly a strange conclusion, but I cannot discredit it. Anything could be true. We do not know as much as I hope we would.
Of that, I totally agree, and there seems to be no library here that we could delve deeper into the information. I do have no answer, however, as to why the gentleman in question did so smell of perfume. I have no information as to if they have an unusual odor of the sea in some way that is unmistakable and therefore has to be masked, or if he just happens to like the aroma of the perfume in question. I am interested in talking to the old drunk, hopefully in a less inebriated state. He certainly knew more than he was saying.
That is a good option, but I would like to check out the warehouse because that's where Carl was last seen. But if you believe the old man is the best decision first, I will follow you.
Well, in all certainty, I'm not sure which one would be the best one first. There are certainly things going on here that are not of good disposition. We therefore should definitely be looking into what the family is doing.
Well, if your mermaid theory is right, I feel like the old man might know more about it, but if they killed him, I suppose the warehouse would be the other place. I really don't know.
I guess the question therefore is, would you rather try to know more about what the family is up to before we speak to the old man to try to corroborate my ideas?
I mean, both locations seem like the logical answer.
The warehouse would probably be in operation during the day. I'm not sure if they would take kindly to us trying to walking in.
That is a good point.
I did not look last night. Was the warehouse still in operation during the evening?
I suppose we can kill time and talk to the old man.
Okay, so do that during the day and then.
That was my thinking.
All right. As you leave the inn, you see Oscar sitting on a barrel outside of it, looking rather dejected. Are you ignoring him entirely and walking on by? Or okay.
You had to keep your mouth running, didn't you?
He looks up at you. I look. I got carried away. I didn't know what to do. I had a dream, and it's something here is wrong. I just wanted to convince her to leave.
We're going to talk to the old man.
The fisherman?
Yes.
Very well. I can't imagine he would have anything to do with the vicar's death.
You asked for our assistance, did you not?
Yes, yes, I did. Do you need me to do anything?
Try not to get yourself killed or kicked off the island.
I can try.
I would suggest we use the same individual that brought us here. At least at face value, he could be trusted.
Taking a look at the docks, you see the same boat that brought you here the night before, and sitting in it is the same man who brought you here. It looks as though he didn't leave the ship to sleep in the inn, but instead opted to sleep in his boat. And there he is.
I don't suppose you're willing to take us to Graveyard Isle.
Look, if you want to pay, I'll take you just about anywhere, but what you want to go there for?
We wish to talk to the old man.
Well, then I hope for your sake he's sober.
So do we. We considered early in the morning might give us a better chance at that kind of outcome.
I wouldn't count on it. Well, jump aboard.
Dixon will climb aboard.
Alvan will also.
And it takes him about an hour to reach Graveyard Isle. You assume that Orvar is there, as a small fishing boat is tied by a sort of ramshackle dock, lightly bumping against it with the movement of the water. Farther up onto the island is a small cabin with fishing nets hung up to dry around it.
We would be obliged if you don't mind waiting, sir.
Very well. As you make your way ashore on a tiny rocky island for the ocean, Dixon, you spot another boat. It is small, a sloop. You can tell there are people on board, but you cannot make out from this distance who they would be.
We're not the only ones in the area.
Well, yes, it is a fishing area, is it not?
Walk to the house, the hut.
Alvan will follow.
It is sort of salt crusted from the ocean breeze, and it is not falling down, but in need of some repair. The door is slightly ajar.
And he will push it open. Ovar!
You do not get a response. You do see a figure on a small bed, seemingly not conscious.
He will walk in and examine the individual.
It is the individual you are looking for, Orvar, the older fisherman. He is asleep or passed out or both. He is
But not dead.
not dead. He is snoring. There are empty bottles. He is not awake.
He will fill a cup and splash it on his face.
And he comes to with a start and sits bolt upright.
I do apologize for the suddenness of your arrival back into this world. I had been trying for quite some time to awaken you. You seemed rather deep in sleep, and this was the most effective manner to be able to converse with you, which is why we have come from the other island to speak with you.
I don't know what you mean. Need a drink.
You can have a drink after we talk, but not before. I need your brain to be as lucid as possible.
He stares at you, and you think he's saying maybe, but you're also not sure he's really taking any of it in. And he looks like comes to a decision, and he says, "Breaking and entering.
I mean, we didn't know breaking. The door was left open.
You give me a drink, or do I have to throw you out?"
Well, we are not natives of your abode. We do not know where you keep your booze.
I don't have any. That's why I'm asking you.
I'm afraid I don't carry any on me. I don't know about my compatriot.
I don't carry it on me, but I will. Next time you are to the other island, I will buy you a drink for your time.
He looks like he's going to fight you. So now we must fight.
I guess I will move towards him and punch him.
No.
Wow, that's really. I'm like 2 4s and 3 5s.
Now, as you walked up and swung on him, he is going to try and retaliate. And his fist connects with your jaw with more force than you're expecting, as he is a rather frail looking old man. You're not sure if it's anger or the fact that he still seems Fourth a little drunk, but he's managed to get in a good punch on you, and you are going to take a physical condition.
Dixon will walk up and kick him quite hard in the shin.
Okay. And he crumples to the ground. And then he looks up at you, and he sort of looks around, and he looks as though he's woken up a little more, perhaps. And he says, ugh, all right, I give. Fine.
And Dixon will haul him to his feet and then shove him back down onto the bed.
Go ahead and break my leg, why don't you?
After you attack the priest, it's not actually outside of my consideration, sir.
What do you want?
I want information. And I was willing to ask you politely about it. Now I am demanding it.
About information about what?
And he points to the water outside, the large body of it.
The ocean.
You know something about what's beneath it. Possibly about Zacharias.
Zacharias is something. It's spawn of something from the deep. He and the well, it's if he wasn't here, the fish wouldn't be here. I think, as far as I can tell, the fish came back when he turned up. But that family, they're strange.
I do not disagree. The point of contention, sir, is that the belief is that when mermaid children reach adulthood, they would, in fact, have the lower half of a fish.
What?
If he is related to their kin, he is now an adult.
If he. If a mermaid and a human have a child, that child will not grow a tail.
Is that even possible?
Some people say it is. I don't know. Those are the stories that fishermen pull up children from the sea, that they are the children of mermaids and
That part of the legend I have heard.
found at sea, they say.
Where is his father? Where is the mother?
Dead. Well, I don't. Which mother?
Yes. Yes, exactly. That's what I'm asking.
I don't know. I am not a historian of the Amundsen family.
Right now, you know a lot more than anyone else over there.
I don't know much. I know. Strange things happen every new moon, and I know that family is wrong.
Legend has it that the mer creatures can control, to some extent, sea life. And as the herring I hear all the time now, that would intimate that there is something strange going on.
They came back when the boy showed up, and he was. Everyone knew, I suppose, that they found him somewhere. He was not a baby when they brought him home, but he was a small child. Ever since he came, the fish have followed.
What is in the warehouse? Do you know, sir?
Fish and more fish.
Are you 100% sure of that? Or are
Yes.
you just assuming?
No, I've delivered fish there. It's full of barrels of salted herring and large pots for cooking train oil. It isn't very pleasant, but it's hardly a mystery.
That could possibly put paid to one of my theories.
Did you ever speak to a vicar of the name Carl?
Speak to him, no, but he used to come and preach in the inn sometimes. I stayed away from him. He told me not to drink so much.
Appears your theory has more merit than I thought.
Hmm. Well, in truth, sir, I did consider that they may have actually captured the boy's mother along with the boy. That she might have been imprisoned in the warehouse. And that they were under some form of duress, causing her to bring the herring in where the family has made its fortune.
Catch a mermaid? That. I pity any fool who would try.
Well, you yourself know that there is something dark and menacing that is going on in this area.
I've told you everything. I know. The boy is probably not quite human. He probably killed his father. Everyone knows that.
What was the reason there?
Who could say? The man was not kind or pleasant or a good husband or a good father or a good anything, really.
Well, if that was the only reason that people got killed, there'd be a lot less of you.
He may have killed his father. His brother, one of them, hasn't been seen for a month. And every new moon, the family travels to. Well, I suppose it doesn't really have a name. I call it the Deep Reef, but it's not on any maps. A bit too small, I think. I don't know what they do there.
Can you show me on a map, sir, where that location is?
I can estimate it. It isn't on any maps.
But you are aware of its location.
More or less. It isn't always above water. And he will pull out a fishing chart and circle an area. It's farther out in the archipelago. You get the sense that whereas it took you about an hour to get to this island, it would be, oh, more like 5 or 6 to get to the location that he's marked. And he hands it over to you.
Thank you, sir.
Was there anything else?
I don't have any other questions.
And Dixon will walk out. Oh, by the way, do you often have visitors? Because there's another sloop over there. You have a good day, sir.
He looks at you confused and then lays back down on the bed. And you see now that the other boat, it's still visible, but it is heading back towards Wrecker Isle. It will get there before you if that is where you are going.
You seem to know more about the mermaids than I do, so you take the lead.
I know happenstance, hearsay, and quite possibly nothing but mere myth and legend, sir.
Still more than I can say.
It does not sound particularly, it does not seem safe to just go roaming around the ocean, hoping to stumble upon something that we require.
Well, I was not suggesting that. I merely suggested you take the lead. If you think it would be better to go back to the main island, then I'm fine with that.
Go back and jump in the boat and ask the captain of his small vessel. How difficult is it, sir, to get to Deep Reef?
Uh, what is that?
and unfold the map and show. It's meant to be in this location.
Well, as far as I know, that location is open ocean. To get there, 5 or 6 hours? It's not hard if the weather's as it is now, but long.
The rumor is it is not always open ocean.
I've not heard any rumors about the place, sir. Or lack of place.
Well, you can say you did now.
I suppose so.
How would one set about following someone on the ocean if they did not wish to be seen?
Uh, I can't say I've ever tried. I imagine hang back at night, no lights.
Do you consider yourself of adequate skill to be able to do such a feat?
I could give it a try. It would be easier at night these days. It's hardly any moon out.
Well, we have that one other lead to follow at this point, but if you are willing, sir, we may have need of you for a somewhat clandestine endeavor.
Look, if you're paying, you can consider my boat your personal method of conveyance.
I'm sure the church will pay for your services, sir.
I don't much care who's paying as long as the money spends. So, where to?
For now, back to the island, I think.
All right, and it's Wrecker Isle you want to go to?
Yes.
Okay. He will take you back. You have another journey, smooth sailing. It's nice weather for it. It's clear. The wind is it's good. It's not too strong, but you're getting along at a good pace and you have another hour to spend just pondering, speaking, doing whatever you would like to do. And then you arrive back at Wrecker Isle.
So what, do you wish to check out the warehouse?
Yeah, once it's closed, sir, I think we should definitely look at that. I cannot shake the feeling that we will have to go out to the middle of this large body of water at some point. However, if it is like he says, and the reef, or whatever it is not actually always above the waterline, I think at the moment we won't find anything.
I mean, he said every new moon they go out there. So perhaps it's only on new moons?
Quickly return to the fisherman. Be prepared, sir. We might have need of you tonight.
Very good. I will wait. Here. It's in the evening that you start to see large numbers of people leaving the warehouse and making their way towards the inn. Around 4:30, 5 o'clock, sort of, and the inn becomes very crowded with just dozens, scores of workers, you assume, looking tired and hungry and thirsty, and it fills up in there very quickly. And looking towards the warehouse, eventually the line of people leaving it ends, and everything there seems still.
Dixon will take a roundabout route there. He won't just go straight across to it, and he's going to look for a way in.
Okay. The warehouse is a huge yellow building that stands out from the rest of the island like a sore thumb, but even if it looked plainer, it would not be hard to find. The overwhelming odor of salted herring and cooking train oil leaves you confident that you could find it blindfolded. Now, during the day, you've seen that the warehouse is a hive of feverish activity, but right now it is quiet. There are a couple doors. There's uh down towards the water, a very large sort of door that you assume they could haul fish directly from boats just into there because it opens onto water. There are some doors on the side of land that you could enter. There are windows. There are many ways it looks as though one could get in. Are you going to just look for a way in, or look around the outside too?
I'm not. Yeah, I'm gonna look for a way, trying to find a way in that is not going to be breaking and entering.
There's a door you find that is open.
He will open it and go in.
Okay. It is dark inside. It is cramped, not because the building is small, but because it is simply packed full of objects, mainly barrels. There are barrels everywhere. It is hard to walk between all of them in places, and there are three large vats that seem to be cooking. Well, not right now because no one's here working, but it seems to be where they cook the oil down from the fish. It smells incredibly strongly of fish in here. Salted fish, the cooking fish oil, and it's pretty oppressively warm as well, which makes a sort of unpleasant environment.
I would like to investigate.
Okay, you do not find anything inside.
I will return.
So you've had a look around both outside and inside, and you haven't really noticed anything out of place. There is a lot of barrels.
I would like to take a scene sitting outside and try to get rid of some of these conditions.
Okay.
Okay, he will sit outside next to a lamp. He will use his Memento, which is a Sherlock Holmes novel with a dedication from the author, and he will read it while he waits to see if the family is going to leave.
One thing that you noticed when you returned to the island is you don't see Oscar, the priest, anywhere. I mean, you've not really checked around. You didn't go into the inn, but he did get kicked out of there, so presumably he's not in there. He no longer seems to be hanging around outside the inn, nor do you see him down by the docks. You didn't see him in the warehouse. He is oddly absent. As the sun begins to go down, you do note a boat leaving the island. You can see it has lights on board, so you can get a good look at it, even though the sun is sort of going down. And it is leaving from what looks to be a small dock behind the Amundsen residence.
His father about?
He would be nearby. Just
And Dixon will jump up and motion.
he will follow.
And we will go down to where our captain is.
All right, and he did indeed wait there for you. He sort of looks questioningly as you return and says, "So, you want to go to the place in the middle of nowhere, or what?"
That is correct, sir, but I think that boat is going to be going to the same location.
He sort of nods. He looks a bit puzzled by the whole thing, but again, as he said, if you're paying him, he's happy to take you wherever. So he unties his boat from the dock and begins trying to follow the boat you've indicated, as you'd mentioned before, wanting to do so slightly surreptitiously. He does not have any lights on the boat, and he is trying to stay at a bit of a distance. Now, you know that this is going to be a journey that takes you a little while based on what you heard from him and even just taking a look at the map and sort of trying to judge the relative distance you You saw how far it was from Wrecker Isle to Graveyard Isle and knew how long that took. This is farther than that. And it does take hours for you to reach what you assume is your destination, what Orvar called the Deep Reef. And you watched as the sky shifted through orange, red, purple, and finally settled on an inky black dotted with stars. As you sail away from the lights of the archipelago, the darkness before you seems to stretch on forever, and it becomes harder to tell dark sea from dark sky. Eventually, after it feels as though you've sort of been sailing through quiet darkness for an eternity, you see before you a jagged, rocky island, and you can see it because the boat that you are following has stopped at it. And stopped is the right word because you've been keeping an eye on this boat. You did not see them drop an anchor. They have not attached the boat to anything, and yet it has stopped. And from its lights, you are able to see what is a very small island or reef. It looks rocky and bare. There is nothing on it that you can see. But the people in the boat, and as you do get cautiously closer, you are able to see that they do indeed look familiar. There are two sort of stockier built, similar looking men. There is a taller man and a short woman. And they are unloading some barrels and bringing them onto the island.
Well, what was the plan from here?
I did not have one, sir. I had no idea upon what we would find.
The forward-thinking man.
Well, I do suspect that your friend Oscar may possibly be in one of those barrels.
Well, I suppose we should save him, shouldn't we?
Begrudgingly.
Maybe that may be too late, but we will see, sir. We will see.
And the captain of the small boat that you're on says, I can't really get any closer if you don't want them to see you. You could swim from here, I suppose. It's cold water, though. And from what you can see, at the moment, they've set two barrels down. Pete and Pace and Abella are sitting just sort of on the island, and Zacharias has walked over to one edge of the island and is sitting with his feet dangling down into the water. And they're not really doing anything.
Well, I think we should go in.
With the boat or swimming?
I do not think, sir, that you are the most physical when it comes to the physical activity. The swim in your robes and such may cause some amount of problem, and I will need you at your best, not your worst.
Despite my age, I still have some fight in me.
Oh, I realize that. I am hoping we may be able to avoid said confrontation, and I believe you are better at that than I am.
As you discuss the best possible option from this point, a red tinge begins to slowly creep back into the sky, signaling that dawn is beginning to slowly break. And your eyes are drawn to a ripple in the water. Slowly, it begins to move closer towards the island, and something breaks the water's surface. You realize that it is a head, and before you have time to really take in what's happening, a beautiful woman begins to pull herself up onto the rocks next to Zacharias. And as she does so, you realize that instead of legs, she has a long, glistening fishtail. Now, They look at each other and do not really seem to speak, although they smile at each other. And Zacharias turns around and gestures to his family that are waiting back closer to the boat. And they open the two barrels they have brought, and from within they pull, as you had assumed, Oscar from one barrel, and from the other they pulled a waitress, Justinia. And they both look confused and terrified, but at gunpoint they are sort of ushered closer to the edge where Zacharias is. And then the mermaid, because you gather that that is what this is, begins to sing. And it is the most beautiful sound you have ever heard. And all of a sudden, Oscar and Justinia do not look afraid anymore. They look completely peaceful and they begin walking towards her of their own accord.
It onto that island.
As you direct him to do so, assuming at this point you're throwing discretion to the winds, the captain will get you to the island as quickly as possible. He isn't able to really attach the boat to it, but he brings it as close as he can, and you are able to scramble ashore.
Dixon will pull his revolver, click the hammer back. Who's armed with the gun? You said they moved him at gunpoint.
Abella, the mother.
He will aim at her and say, I would prefer that if you did not send the priest to the watery depths.
I assume they've turned around.
Well, seeing as how they were addressed by Dixon, some of them have, yes. Pete, Pace, and Abella have turned to look at you. Zacharias was sort of facing your direction anyway, as he turned around to tell them to get their prisoners out of the barrels. Oscar and Justinia do not turn to look at you, and the mermaid doesn't seem particularly interested in your presence.
I really wish we can sort things out. You seemed like a quite good people when we had our meal together.
Abella, who's holding the shotgun still, is pointing it at the two of you, and even though Dixon has a gun pointed at her as well, she has not lowered hers. She doesn't seem focused at all on Oscar or Justinia anymore. They are moving on their own, so she doesn't need to be directing them, and she is simply standing, staring at you, pointing her weapon in your direction, and the two brothers are sort of taking their cues from her. You cannot interrupt this. This is necessary.
Well, I'm afraid that man is a fellow priest and a friend. And the girl is somebody close to him, and I would not be a good man if I didn't intervene.
She doesn't back down. I mean, she doesn't really have a reason to.
I would like to slowly approach, trying to gauge on how close I can get the priest.
Oh, he's they are all in between. So
Okay.
Abella, Pete, and Pace are in between you and Oscar and Justinia, who are headed for the other side of the island.
So what are you getting out of this?
She doesn't really answer. She doesn't seem to feel she needs to.
If Dick is back, I would like to approach the two walking towards the water, and I know somebody will cover my back.
Okay, Alvon, you are, as Dixon is covering you, able to get up next to Oscar and Justinia.
Do they seem like in a trance?
They do.
I would like to, I guess, shove them to the ground. That's one way.
You go to shove Oscar, and you end up finding that pushing against him, it almost seems like he has more strength than he normally does. He's never been particularly strong. It is hard to push him. You're not able to actually shove him down. You end up sort of tussling with him, and as you do, your crucifix, the necklace that you have, swings and it manages to hit him slightly in the face. Not hard, not something that would hurt him, but as soon as it does, he stops and he turns to look at you, and his face goes from just a mask of pure calm back to confusion and terror. And he is looking at you in shock. And he has stopped walking.
Alvon would like to do the same to the girl.
Okay, you are able to do so, although at this point, Zacharias has definitely caught on that something is actually a problem. Because you being on the island, that wasn't so much a problem as long as they were still walking towards the water. But as you manage to touch Justinia's skin with the metal crucifix, she also stops walking. And she looks even more confused, possibly because, well, Oscar had at least suspected something strange was happening. She didn't really have that knowledge going into any of this. And Zacharias is beginning to look furious, and he walks over to you. All of you, he looks torn, and he says, "You do not know what you are doing."
I gave you the chance to explain yourself, and you chose silence.
Well, I imagine she was hoping she wouldn't have to kill you, as that sort of ruins the whole thing.
And what is it ruining?
Oh, you know, simply everything, the livelihoods of everyone on Wrecker Isle, the entire Fjallbacka archipelago, actually.
That seems like a bit of an over-exaggeration.
Oh, it isn't.
And how is it ruining that?
My family has the unique opportunity, a duty, you could call it, to ensure commerce does not encompass life, to ensure that life here continues. Without the fish, nothing survives here. No one survives here. Everything here depends on the fish. Without them, those that cannot afford to move will starve.
The solution is murder?
Oh, I assure you, I have killed no one.
Or what was the plan? They walk into the sea and not die?
Oh, I'm sure they die, but I could not kill them. It wouldn't work if I did.
I mean, you're assisting, are you not?
I bring them here. That is the extent of my involvement.
It's a pretty crucial involvement, I would say.
If you wish to guilt me, I assure you, you will not. This is necessary for the survival of this entire archipelago.
So how'd you come to the conclusion that these two should be the victims?
Really, only one is needed, but after last month's unfortunate happenings, I thought a backup would be wise. As for your friend there, he was getting rather troublesome.
I told him to keep his mouth shut, and I assume he didn't.
When? I, apart from an outburst this morning, or yesterday morning now, I am aware of no specific incidents. However, it's a recurring issue, I would say.
So, what, you expect me to just allow you to do this and walk away?
If you don't wish for more people to die, then yes.
What was happening here was unnatural anyways.
What do you mean?
The herring, it ruins the balance of nature, the environment.
I assure you there is no need for any such concerns. My mother is certainly capable of keeping the environment in check.
And what is that supposed to mean?
Everything in these waters lives or dies as she wishes. So, really, there are two ways that this can go. You can leave, I suppose. Or even that would be risky, but killing you presents its own set of problems. You can leave and leave us to what we must do, or we can prevent you from stopping us. As long as someone survives, we can dispatch with the rest.
Well, I am afraid, in my good conscience, I cannot let this carry on.
I see. Well, then, I suppose we are at an impasse? Or at least we will now have to try and kill each other? I don't. This is all so unnecessary.
I would like to swing.
Alright, starting a fight. Please roll a d10. Okay. The first to move, once it becomes clear that this isn't really going to be solved by talking, and someone who probably couldn't have solved it by talking even if he tried, is one of the older brothers. It's a little hard sometimes to tell them apart, but you think this one might be Pete. Pete is basically going to rush forwards, and he is attempting to grab onto Oscar, and he's not fighting him, he's just trying to drag him farther. Pete dashes forwards, and he has a pistol on his belt, but he does not draw it. You get the sense from what Zacharias said, they really don't actually want to kill you, at least not all of you. So it's maybe safer to not resort to that right from the start. He does, however, basically tackle Oscar down to the rock ground, and you see his head strike the hard surface, and he just goes limp. And Pete then gets up and begins dragging him towards the water. He cannot get that far.
Vaughn would like to run up behind him and this time punch him. I got a success. That's why I said, there we go. You will run up and then just straight in the back of the head. It's a hard punch. Surprisingly hard for an old man.
As Pace, seeing that the priest has punched his brother in the back of the head, is going to run up and he has a knife in his hand, and he is going to attempt to slash at Alvan.
He will turn around and quickly grab his wrist and look him dead in the eyes. So he'll hold his wrist and kind of twist it and shove him off.
Abella is still holding the shotgun. She is sort of going back and forth, pointing it at different people. She seems very unsure of what to do because, again, they don't really want to kill you. So she's actually going to wait to see how things turn out. She's basically just sort of trying to oversee and will intervene if things seem much worse.
A success. Dix has been aiming at the mother because she's got the shotgun, but the moment Pace decided to up it from physical to deadly with the knife, Dix waited till he saw the parry was successful, and as the priest managed to shove him back a couple of feet, he brings up the revolver and it crashes as it sends a single round of hot lead across, which tears into Pace's upper back around his shoulder, and it burns like crazy, and he's bleeding from the wound.
And he lets out a shriek, and Zacharias is looking very concerned. This is not how this normally goes. You get the sense. And Zacharias has been observing this conflict with a very worried air. But then he gets a sort of look in his eye as though he's just thought of something. And he stands and he begins to stare very, very hard at Justinia, who, unlike Oscar, did not get tackled to the ground, is not unconscious, and has been standing off to one side, looking very unsure of what to do. She doesn't really want to get involved in the fighting, but she also can't just jump into the water and swim away. I mean, she could, but it's a long way to land, and so she's sort of hovering off to one side. Zacharias holds out a hand in her direction, and he seems to be saying something under his breath, and as he does so, she begins walking back towards the mermaid. Return to Pete, who is looking back and forth between Oscar, who he has knocked out and was dragging towards the water, and his brother, who has been shot and is in a great deal of pain. And he seemingly comes to the decision that he is going to fight the people that shot his brother. So he is going to draw his pistol and he is going to try and shoot Dixon. He pulls his pistol from his belt and he points it at you. You don't think it's fear, but his hand is shaking. You're not sure if it's rage or if he doesn't really know how to use this weapon. It doesn't seem to be something that he's familiar with. And he does pull the trigger, but the shot goes straight into the strange sort of rocky coral. You're not sure what the ground is, actually, but
Elvon will now go try to save the girl.
she's just walking towards the mermaid.
He was pissing me off anyway, so he will get punched in the face.
All right, you're going to go punch Zacharias.
Success.
He looks a bit shocked. So he looks rather taken aback that you have punched him. Justinia is still walking. She maybe stopped for a moment, but she's still going that direction. Pace is not looking good. He is going to spend his turn basically trying to it's not working very well. He's basically trying to put pressure in a wound that's on his back, but he can't even really reach it. So he's just sort of scrabbling at his back with his hands. and they are coming away red with blood, and he seems to be slightly panicked, and he's not really going to do anything other than react to having been shot. Bella, she's confused. She doesn't want to shoot because everyone's sort of all around, and you get the sense she uses this shotgun more as a threat than something she actually shoots people with. She seems very hesitant to actually fire it. She is instead going to go over to Pace and start trying to see how badly he is wounded, so she's going to spend her action doing that.
Who's going to send another round downrange? It's a little bit away, so he clicks the hammer back and fires again. The bullet goes past Pete, and he sees the splash as it skims off the water behind him.
Zacharias is looking at Alvon, and his face goes from shock to rage. He seems completely taken aback that you would dare to hit him. And he holds his hand out towards you. And as he does so, Justinia stops walking because it seems like he's got other things on his mind right now. Alvon, Zacharias is standing there just glaring at you, and if looks could kill, you would be dead, but they can't, and you get the sense that whatever it is he's trying to do that possibly could kill you, it isn't working. And whether that's because he's too angry or too shocked or too confused because none of this is going right, not able to focus on whatever he's trying to do, and nothing is happening. Pete is still holding the pistol out towards you, and he seemed alarmed the first time he tried firing it. You really do not think this is a weapon that he is used to using. But whether he learned something from the first time or simply had better luck the second time, his next shot does hit its mark. Not a fatal mark, and again, you're not sure whether that's chance or if it's because he's purposefully trying not to kill you. But you do feel a searing hot pain in your leg as his bullet hits its mark, and you will take 2 conditions, physical ones, from that.
Elbon is going to once again punch him straight in the face. He doesn't like his weird magic bullshit.
No, even though it didn't do anything to you?
Nope, a success. He punches him straight in the face with all his might. There is a loud crack as what can be presumed his nose breaks.
And blood trickles from one of his nostrils, and he stares at you with a look of, well, it isn't pure rage, because it is rage mixed with disbelief that anyone would do this to him. Pace continues to attempt to deal with his own wound, as does his mother, who is sort of tending to it. So we come back around to Dixon.
And I miss.
Alvon, you may not have cared for whatever magic nonsense that Zacharias was attempting to do, but you won't like it even more when it works, because as he holds his hand out towards you, you feel a truly odd sensation. You are standing on, well, not exactly dry land, as the island is small and waves crash over it every once in a while, but you stand on land with your head firmly above the water. Your throat begins to fill with seawater. You choke and splutter, and your lungs burn, and it is only when you feel as though you are about to pass out or possibly drown that it seems to dissipate. Not leak out of your mouth and nose, but almost vanish. But it was not simply an illusion, as you are left physically damaged by it, and you take one physical condition. Pete, well, he did manage to shoot Dixon. He's not exactly prepared for the recoil. He's dropped his gun, and he is scrambling to pick it up, and that is what he is doing. Alvon, what would you like to do?
Alvon would like to attack the magic bullshit man, Zachariah.
Is that his new name?
Magic
All right.
bullshit man.
That's his new title. Heron Bearing? Heron Bearing? Herring Baron is so out.
2 success. As Alvon climbs up to his feet, he will shoulder charge into Zachariah. And as Zachariah falls, Alvon will get on top of him and start choking him until he goes limp. Not killed, but limp.
Justinia is standing off to one side, looking truly baffled by everything that is going on, which is a fair reaction, I think, if you wake up in a barrel on an island and there's a mermaid, and yeah, she's a little lost as to what is going on.
But she's not walking towards the sea.
No, she stopped as soon as Zacharias started trying to drown you, because he can only do one spell at a time.
Then I would like to go towards... Is it Pete who got shot?
Pace got shot and
Pace.
is on the ground. Pete is scrambling for his gun. Abella is sort of tending to Pace. Zacharias, you thought was unconscious, but he may not have been, and you see that he is dragging himself towards the water.
I just drag him back.
Everyone else who's been kind of trying to throw themselves into the water has had a glassy look, like they're in a trance. He does not have this. You don't think that the mermaid has enchanted him to try and enter the water. He is sort of desperately dragging himself towards the water, and it looks very purposeful.
If I can, I would like to try to stop him from doing that.
Getting ridiculous, Dix. Do your thing. A success.
Pete is on his hands and knees and is scrambling for the dropped pistol. In his rage, he knocks it away from him and he finally grabs it and snarling he comes to his feet and fires a hasty shot. Dixon is feeling a calmness he didn't expect to. He had killed during the war, yet it was something he never enjoyed doing. Yet the possible death of Pete, it did not seem to bother him. As Pete's round drilled by, Dixon fires. And Pete stands there, his anger slowly ebbing in time to the increasing weight of his pistol, until he could hold it no longer. The pain escalated with the expanding red stain upon his chest. And finally, he drops his gun and turns. He manages only a couple of steps before he stumbles and then falls, where he moves no more.
Only one person is still, well, not moving, because many people are moving, but only one person seems to have anything sort of new to throw into the ring here. Because, well, you're not entirely sure what this mermaid is looking for. You got the sense it's some kind of sacrifice, yes, and they'd all said something about wanting to not kill people. Things do not seem to be going how she would like them to. And she lets out a shriek. It is incredibly loud and jarring, especially compared to the very beautiful music she was making earlier, and she dives back into the dark water. And for a moment, everything is still, but then the ground beneath you shakes, and you struggle to keep your footing. Then it suddenly shoots upwards, and you are flung wildly off into the water. I need everyone to make an agility check.
I get a success.
You do not succeed.
I do not succeed. 2 success, I pushed.
The cold water hits you, and both the force of the fall and the freezing temperature send shockwaves through your body. As you thrash your way to the surface, you struggle to comprehend the sight before you. A huge creature is rising out of the water where the island was. I know I just made you roll, but I now need you to make a fear check. This is a fear check with the value of 2, meaning you need 2 successes or more to succeed.
I got 2 successes.
1 success.
You notice a couple things. At first, all you notice is this giant creature rising out of the water, and there's a moment of, what is that? Because you've not seen anything like this. You've maybe heard of Vaesen getting this big, but this thing is gigantic. And the second thing you realize is that the top of its head was the island you were standing on. It probably didn't like getting shot, but it didn't seem to phase it too much until the mermaid voiced her displeasure. The third thing you notice is that the boat that brought you here is still there. The Amundson's boat is also still there. And the fourth thing you notice is that Justinia is desperately trying to keep Oscar's head above the water as he is unconscious.
I will try to assist Justinia.
As you try and swim either towards Justinia to get Oscar to the boat, the water begins to froth and churn, and you see that the Kraken's tentacles stirring the water into a frenzy. Swimming becomes very hard. In order to swim where you need to, I need you to make an agility test.
Alright. No success.
1 success.
You are able to reach the boat, and so Dixon is able to, with assistance, scramble on board the boat. Alvon, you are able to make it over to where Justinia is sort of struggling with Oscar, but you're not able to really assist her in that she's flailing, his head is sinking below the water is churning. You're really having trouble here. She is still struggling with Oscar. You can attempt to do another agility check if you want to, but I will also say that at the same time, Dixon and the captain of the boat could be making their way towards you.
Or a rope. Is there a rope we could throw? Something
Sure,
to...
throw a rope.
Oh, success.
You are able to basically, not exactly like take Oscar from Justinia, but you're able to get into a position where you can keep his head above water while she's able to also tread water to keep herself from going under. And you get the sense that this arrangement is not particularly sustainable, but also you know that you couldn't just hang around treading water here for very long anyway, so you don't need to keep it up for very long. And as you're doing this, what is Dixon doing? Are you trying to just pull up next to them or throw a rope?
Throw a rope. Like, probably get close enough. The rope's probably not, because, I mean, it's not going to be a thin rope, but if it's too thick, it's going to be too hard to throw. So, it'll be one of the fisherman's rope, and so, within a few feet, and throw it out to them, and he's ready to start reeling them in.
As you toss a rope, Justinia is able, now that she's not sort of desperately struggling with Oscar's limp body, is able to grab a hold of it, and you are able to sort of, they're all in a little clump sort of gripping onto each other. You're able to tow them sort of collectively over to the side of the boat. And between you and the captain, you will be able to haul all of them up on board. It is cold. You are cold and shivering as you come out of the water. It is almost not. I mean, you notice that, but adrenaline is also sort of kicking in. There is a giant creature. It is still very much there, and it doesn't seem very happy. So, you're grateful the captain actually stuck around this long. It's probably only shock that did that, because this thing, people can't see Vaesen normally unless they want them to. Like, he can see this thing. So he's making a go of it. You're leaving. I'm surprised it only got 2.
That's a lot of die.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a kraken for you. So as your boat turns, and you are just wishing that you could get this boat turned around any faster. As you begin to wheel around, you come to the realization that you made the right choice in boats to swim to. Because a tentacle suddenly lashes out and it just obliterates the Amundson's boat, the one that they came in. Wood splinters and flies through the air, some of it clattering onto the deck of the boat you are on, most of it splashing into the water, where it sort of flails about in the churning sea. You don't know where the Amundsons are. You didn't see them get on their boat, but if they did, well, if they didn't die on impact, they are probably sinking to the bottom of the sea. But you're not able to pay attention to that for too long, because your boat is able to turn. And it almost is helpful the way the Kraken is causing waves, just huge ones. They seem to push you farther and faster than you could possibly have been going on your own. You don't know if it had a good sense of going after specific people, or if it was just enraged and crashing one boat was good enough. It doesn't, however, seem to be following you. So, well, simply the knowledge that it is there in the water and your boat is still on the water, and if it wanted to come after you, it definitely could, may be quite unnerving. You, for the moment at least, seem to be in the clear.
And Dixon will collapse into the boat and lay there.
And the captain is just sort of looking straight ahead. He is just sailing. He goes, I shouldn't have said I shouldn't have taken this job. This was a mistake. This was a mistake.
This is an everyday occurrence for us, sir. This is what we do.
And he looks at you and you get the sense he's not sure if you're lying to him or not. He simply settles on, then I don't envy you.
If I had the energy, sir, I would punch you, he said, looking at Oscar.
Oscar is unconscious, so
Yes, he knows.
good. Justinia has checked that he is breathing. She looks at you and says, I wouldn't. It might kill him at this point, but he is alive.
Well, you, at least, should be more than happy.
She looks at you confused as to what she should be happy about.
You wanted a life of adventure and excitement. Well, madam, you got that today.
I said that Fjallbacka was boring. I never asked for adventure, and I certainly never asked for this.
And you thought that where you lived was boring.
Thankfully, I didn't live there.
I hope you realize how close you were to not coming back.
She looks at you with sort of a look of yes, but also seems a little confused that you seem to be lecturing her because she didn't go there on purpose. She got kidnapped, and now she feels like she's in trouble.
If I were you, I would be as far away from this place as I can be.
Well, I certainly don't think I'm staying now.
Levon will toss a bag of coin towards the captain.
He will simply let it thud next to his foot. He is. I mean, he doesn't not want it. He wants it, but he's very focused on staring straight ahead. He almost seems to think that if he looks even slightly back, he might see a giant kraken following you.
Spend it wisely, Captain.
We don't even know what really killed Carl.
I would hazard a guess. See, my feeling, sir, is that he was fed to that there lady. Much like your friend Oscar here.
I don't even know.
But, Captain, that deal with the devil is now done. The herring may not be as plentiful in your region.
Sir, I'm not staying in this region. I think I shall move very far inland.
I'm sure your skills would be equally useful on the waterways and the rivers.
Oh, I think I shall take up farming. Or anything. No water.
And Dixon will lean in to the priest and quietly say, I guess it would not be a fortuitous time to tell him that the Vaesen can also exist on land.
Well, hopefully he won't have to see another one.
And eventually, you return to Wrecker Isle.
What do you want to do with your young former friend, now acquaintance?
I don't know. He said help him figure out what happens. If he's satisfied with what we discovered, then I guess go our separate ways.
What about you, ma'am? Are you willing to look after him until he gets back on his feet? Or do we
Uh,
drag his sorry carcass back to the mainland?
uh, that is up to you, I suppose. If you want to leave him, I can make sure he gets a room to lie in until he comes to.
Is there a medical practitioner on the island?
Uh, sort of. He's not exactly a doctor, but close enough. We can get him seen to.
It really is, in this case, your choice. We can take him. I do not think his head wound is life-threatening.
No, it doesn't look it, but it's probably not going to be very easy for you to drag a dead weight wherever it is that you are going. My only concern would be if he wakes up and you are gone. I do not know what to tell him.
That we have succeeded.
In what?
In what it is that we do, and honestly, there are things that you and him are better off not knowing.
Leave him here, then. I will hope that explanation is enough.
But as for what happened to his friend, I believe it was going to be what happened to you.
She looks a bit confused, just nods, and then she goes, she said there was someone that isn't exactly a doctor, but sort of functions as one here, so she heads off to find someone to tend to Oscar. And you return, time passes, and you do hear news from Gelbecka. And things didn't happen exactly as you thought. For a while, the herring stayed. Nothing changed. Well, the entire Amundsen family had disappeared, so there was no one really to run the saltery, the inn. Various people tried to step up and fill in their shoes. It didn't go quite as well, but the herring were still there for a while. But they did gradually begin to lessen and lessen until once again they were gone. And it is at this point that you receive a letter. It is it looks unusual right from the start. The paper is salt stained and the whole thing smells of seaweed. The ink on it has run a little bit. And it is a letter from Zacharias, who it seems is not dead. It is basically writing to you to inform you of, firstly, that fact, and secondly, of the fact that he is gone. He is not anywhere near Wrecker Isle, nor does he intend to return. And it is for this reason, because he does not believe you are going to be able to track him down, nor does he particularly wish to put in the time to track you down. Because of that, for his own amusement, for the sake of tying up loose ends, you're not sure, but he has decided to share with you a few things that you do not know. Some of what he writes is not a surprise. The mermaid is his mother. He is what is called a sea child. He slipped away into the water and has gone to make a life elsewhere. He cannot live underwater like a mermaid can, but he can swim extraordinarily well and stay underwater for a great deal longer than a human could. So escaping that way was not particularly hard for him, and once the Kraken threw everyone into the water, he was pretty much in the clear. He expresses regret. Sort of. For the death of the vicar. Oh, he's not sorry he died, because that was the plan, but he's sorry for how he died, because that wasn't how it was supposed to happen. They wanted the vicar to be their sacrifice, kill two birds with one stone, you see, because he was getting a little bit annoying, and they did need a new person every month, really, every new moon. Now, it wasn't really hard to find anyone, what with sailors coming through, temporary workers. They were never really at a loss for options, but this would have been better. Get rid of him and ensure that the fish stick around. They didn't know, however, that he had brought a gun. So when they brought him out to the island, when he realized what was happening and he drew his weapon, they were not prepared. He, understanding what was happening, they sort of recounted to him maybe hoping he wouldn't put up as much of a fight if he believed it was for the greater good. You're not sure, but he instead chose to end his own life rather than be a sacrifice to the mermaid. And this was a problem because the mermaid only takes living sacrifices, and now the vicar was dead. So, Zacharias had to do something, and well, there was another brother you heard of, Paul. No one's seen him for about a month. Well, they still needed a sacrifice, and they got one. But they decided from that point on that they wouldn't be so unprepared again, which is why they brought two this month, just in case something went wrong. And even so, you managed to mess it up. But, well, he's reasonable. He's not gonna hold it against you, probably. I mean, you only killed his family and ruined his business and whatever, but call it even, why don't you? He's free, and now you know it. Maybe be careful if you happen to be near the ocean, but